Look no further for evidence of why congressional approval numbers are likely so low. Members of Congress lining up today to get a COVID-19 vaccination after being deemed essential workers for the continuity of government, getting that vaccine before average Americans and many frontline workers. Let's discuss these optics and a whole lot more with tonight's panel. Democratic strategist Kevin Walling, Center for American Liberty founder Harmeet Dhillon, and from Young Americans for Liberty, Kristin Tate. Welcome all.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, Mike, good evening.
Vice President Mike Pence rolled up his sleeve today. Here's what he had to say.
Karen and I were more than happy to step forward before this week was out to take the safe and effective coronavirus vaccine that we have secured and produced for the American people. Under Operation Warp Speed, we are poised to have vaccine for 20 million Americans before the end of December. It is truly a medical miracle.
Harmeet, your thoughts?
Well, I'm glad to see the vice president getting vaccinated. I plan to get vaccinated as soon as it's available to me. But the idea that members of Congress are more essential workers than any others is ludicrous. And many Americans would argue that they are far less essential and they do more harm every day than they do good. And so we're going to see some culture wars shaping up in this country over who gets vaccinated first. We're already seeing racial preferences and quotas being discussed and strikes between different tiers of healthcare workers. So I hope that they all figure it out and we all eventually are able to make that choice in an organized way.
As for a Democrat, here's Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tonight.
The vaccine is now available to members of Congress, and we're urged to take it as part of a continuity of governance plan. It's faster than I had even anticipated this would be available to us, but I think it's extremely important for us to, model and practice what we preach.
Kristin, how do you respond to her?
I actually think it's great that politicians from both sides of the aisle are getting this vaccine and being very positive about it. It boosts public confidence. What I'm concerned about, though, is that even though the vaccine is now being put into the arms of Americans, there's no sign that these draconian and anti-science lockdowns in many parts of the country are going to be lifted anytime soon. In the previous segment, you were talking about New York City's indoor dining ban, which is just devastating to restaurant owners. And it's not based on the state's own data, which shows that only 1.43% of COVID cases are from bars and restaurants. For all of the shrieking on the left about data and science, these lockdowns are often put in place without any science or data to back them up. So, at this point, it started with 15 days to slow the spread. Then we were told we just need to flatten the curve. Then we were told we just need to wait for a vaccine. But these politicians are so drunk with power that I don't think a vaccine is going to make it so that they lift these lockdowns anytime in the near future.
Let's bring Kevin in. Kevin, your thoughts on these politicians rolling up their sleeves for the vaccine, and respond to Kristin.
Yeah, Mike, this should be a nonpartisan issue. I'm encouraged to see representatives of both sides of the aisle. You saw Speaker Pelosi, you saw Leader Mitch McConnell following the vice president's lead today alone taking that shot. When studies show that 50% of Americans have reservations about this vaccine, I think it's more important than ever to see leadership from both sides stepping forward and getting that vaccine. So I agree with Harmeet and Kristin on that point. And I'd also love to see the president take that vaccine despite coming down with COVID earlier, we know, this fall. I think it'd be symbolic to see him, as well as the President-elect Joe Biden, who plans to have the vaccine next week.
Okay, to the runoffs in Georgia. The Real Clear Politics average has Purdue up 1.2 over Ossoff. Real Clear Politics has the Loeffler-Warnock race a nail-biter. Harmeet, what's your read?
What my read is that the Republican candidates need to really do everything that they can, pull out all the stops, and turn out the vote. We've seen a lot of divisive rhetoric on the Republican side there, which is troubling to me. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a turnout game. It's a special election. Special election turnout is typically low. And so whoever can turn out their voters is going to win this election.
Kristin, we're running short on time. Your thoughts?
Yeah, these Georgia runoffs aren't just about the candidates on the ballot. They're about saving this country. from a radical left-wing agenda. If Democrats get unified control, they can reshape this country in ways that I think many voters don't quite yet understand. Amnesty for millions of illegal immigrants, giving statehood to Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C., which would secure left-wing power for a generation, and a Green New Deal, which would give the federal government huge powers over the everyday lives of Americans. Those are just a few of the things they could do. So Georgia voters on the right, you've got to get out and vote.
Let's give Kevin a final word.
Yeah, Mike, real quick, I'm encouraged by seeing what we're seeing in terms of early turnout numbers. 1.1 million Georgians have already gone to the polls. That's on par with what we saw last November with the general election. 5 million Georgians went to the polls last cycle, elected Joe Biden in that state. I think Democrats have a really good shot at those 2 seats.
We'll be watching it. Panelists, thanks so much. Have a beautiful weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike. You too.
Thank you, Mike.
Text messages reveal Hunter Biden's former business associates hinted at wanting to, quote, get Joe involved. That's next.